Good Shabbos. This week's portion is Parshas Toldos. And in this portion, we're introduced to the birth of twin sons to Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov and Esav. There's different ways of understanding the differences and the struggle between Yaakov and Esav. Very famously, Reb Samson Raphael Hirsch explains the following. He says, how is it possible two boys born at the same time to the same parents with, we understand, to be righteous parents, could have children which go in such different directions? And that's assuming that Esav is really going in the very wrong direction and he has a murderous side to him. And he says, well, the problem is you could raise your children in the same way, but the trick to raising children correctly is understanding where your child is at, what that child needs. And you have to make sure that you create an environment for each particular child which suits him, not what suits your ideal. And he says that's possibly what the mistake, if any, was of Yitzchak and Rivka, that they were raising them as if they were both going to be these ideal children. I'd like to approach it in a different way and just try to look at the hints that the Torah gives us about Yaakov and Esav, and perhaps it's a sign to us to what makes the Jewish people so special in the fact that they could survive and thrive through thousands of years, no matter what the struggles were. And again, we'll just look at the hints that the Torah gives us. When Esav is born, it says that he is Esav. His name is Esav, which comes from the word asu. He's a made man. He's kulu kader seir. He's full of hair, and has a ruddy complexion, and therefore he's also the older son, and therefore we understand him to be someone who naturally would have certain confidence in his abilities. He's strong. He's good looking. He's the oldest son, which is very important, especially in those times. And Yaakov is following. And Yaakov is Yado Ochezas Bakei Esav. Yaakov is just holding on to the heel of Esav. He's behind him. And what does Yitzchak call him? It's a question of who calls him, but let's assume Yitzchak gives him the name. He calls him Yaakov, that he had about the heel. That's a strange name to give your son. You would think that by giving him a name, Yaakov, a heel, he's saying you're forever doomed to be on the lower ranks, which seems to be Yitzchak's plan because he wanted to give the blessings to Esav. But it's giving Yaakov something very difficult to overcome in life. He could have named him Achaz, which there's a king called Achaz later on in Jewish history. Achaz grabbing, holding on, struggling, but he doesn't give him that name. But what we see in the story of Yaakov and Esav is that Yaakov didn't necessarily sit and accept his position as the second to Esav, the older brother, to be the one who's doomed to be always the one following behind Esav. But rather, Yaakov really rises to the occasion. And we see something about Esav also. What would we see about Esav? Esav seems to be strong, confident, and then the Torah says as they grow up, Esav is Ish Yodei Etzayid Ish Sada. He's a hunter. He's a man of the field. Again, strong and competent and able. And what's Yaakov? Yaakov is Ish Tam Yoshev V'Holim. You could translate as simple, pure, innocent. He's somebody who dwells in tents. And again, there's different ways of understanding what it means, dwells in tents. But one of the connotations could be he's what I would call an inner directed person. He's quiet. He's not the one who's going to be out there conquering the world. Esav is the one who's going to conquer. But what do we see? Right afterwards, the story of Yaakov and Esav, everything is turned upside down. Because Esav goes out to hunt. And when he comes back from the hunt, he's tired. And what does he say? He says, give me min ha'adam hazeh, from this red soup that Yaakov was cooking, ki ayef anochi, because I am tired. Esav is really saying that even though he was the ish sadeh, he was the man of the field, he was Yodei Etzayid, he knew how to hunt. And it says also that Yitzchak loved him because because he was able to give tzayid b'piv, he was able to feed him. Esav was the one who was going to support the family. But he comes from the field and he says he's tired, and he is tired, and he's weak. And now he's dependent on Yaakov. So it could be just happens to be that day was a bad day out on the hunting grounds. But I think what the Torah is telling us in this first story is something very different. That people who appear confident, who have all of the benefits that life gives them, sometimes just get carried away with their overconfidence, and they assume they could do anything in life, but they don't really struggle for it. They think it's coming to them. And therefore, they don't have to do anything for them, for the benefits that should accrue to them. And then they come and they say, but really, he's saying about himself, Oye Fanochi. He's recognizing deep down he's tired, he's weak. And who's going to be the one who's going to be feeding someone? It's not the Esav who fed Yitzchak, or you would assume would feed Yaakov, but it was Yaakov who's the Yoshev Aholim, who's sitting in the tent, and he's the one who's going to be feeding Esav. And therefore he says, you know what? Sell me the birthright. Again, you could understand this in many different ways, but he's really saying, no, I'm going to be the one who struggles, and I'm going to be the one who grows. I'm going to be the one who attains greater heights than anyone ever expected of me. And therefore, I'm going to get the birthright. I'm the one who's going to be the one who's going to be the father of the Jewish people. And both Yaakov and Esav have two names. Yaakov's, let's start with Esav. Esav's name is Edom, his secondary name, Edom, the red, like the red soup. It could have said he's called Edom because he was born with ruddy complexion, and it said Admoni. He was like earthy tones, which is also red. Edom is the root of that word. Could have said that's why he was born, but no. The name that he's given, the secondary name that he's given, the Torah says because he wanted that red soup. It's a sign of his weakness. On the surface, he's strong and ruddy and capable. But deep down, he's Ayef Anochi. He says, I am weak. And his name connotes that he's going to always just be the one who's hoping to get soup from the soup kitchen that Yaakov has now created. And Yaakov is not satisfied with the name Yaakov. Yaakov goes out later on, and we see that he sees a vision of a ladder for malachim, angels climbing up and down, and he has visions of God. He's someone who wants to go up that ladder. He's someone who wants to struggle in life. And he's someone who now he's not satisfied with being ba'akev Esav, by the heel of Esav. But rather, what does he become? What's his secondary name? Yisrael. Because he struggles with the divine, with God, with angels, however you interpret it. Batucha, and he's successful, he's victorious. He fights that angel that might be the angel of Esav. It might be a symbol of his brother that he's going to meet the next day in the stories that we were told later on. Whatever it is, we see that he's not satisfied with his lot in life, but he's going to earn everything that he's going to get in life. And therefore, he's somebody who grows. And that's the difference, I think, between Esav and Yaakov. Esav is satisfied with his lot, overconfident. Yaakov is the one who isn't born with all the capabilities. He's not necessarily the brilliant, strong, confident man that Esav seems to be. But he's someone who's not satisfied with his lot, someone who's not satisfied with being secondary, but rather he's going to be Yisrael. He's going to struggle, whether it's with the divine, whether with angels, with men, with whoever comes his way. He's going to be someone who's Yado Ochezes Bakev Esav. He's struggling, he's holding on. He's saying, even though I'm born second, I want to be first. And therefore he takes that. He buys the birthright. He steals the blessings. Again, this could be understood in many different ways, but I think what we have to understand is that's the nature of the Jewish people, not to be satisfied with what we are and what we have, but rather to struggle and to move forward in life. Good Shabbos.